when you went to medical school, you really did ask questions. It was more about memorizing the facts and answering multiple choice questions. So I think we've reached the point where we have this wave of people who are practicing medicine in a different way. So for one person to get a little bit better, the cost would be $150,000. So it is a rigged game. It's a racket. If you look at racketeering, and it really needs to change. The point is, like, sometimes you really need them all, because just because we're fit and healthy doesn't mean that we're not missing something. And certainly if molecularly we look good, but we're not fit and healthy, then clearly we're missing something as well. We're looking at the wrong chemicals or the wrong markers.
If you don't mind, would you share your background just so we can get a perspective where you're coming from?
I'm a physician, an MD, trained as a biomedical engineer, and an entrepreneur, experimenter at a farm. So I've always been very much into physical fitness and health. And actually going way back, I think it was my grandmother. Somehow I was sick when I was 13, and she was going through her news catalog, and she always had a magazine in, and there was something on the Huns of Soviet Georgia, right? Or actually the Huns of Asia, and then also the Soviet Georgians. And it was quite revelatory to me. Like, these people were actually living healthfully and long. And that just stuck with me. And throughout high school, after baseball, hockey, when I went to undergrad, I was an engineer, was very much into biomedical engineering. And that premise of how we address health and how we understand what we can do to take care of ourselves. And I was completely shocked, actually, going to med school. I like completely, even in the 80s, how diametrically opposed I was. It was nothing, was almost shunned in some ways, but actually suggesting that we talk about health. And especially coming as an engineer, we're understanding the electrophysiology of the heart, and you'd actually ask questions. When you went to medical school, you really did ask questions. It was more about memorizing the facts and answering multiple choice questions. And it was quite disappointing. But that led me to a whole variety of different aspects, from functional health practice in Massachusetts to formulation of supplements to getting involved in testosterone and athletic performance and training. And now that the longevity space has caught up, at least the technology, and we're seeing quite a lot of fun things are on the horizon.
Yeah. And just your specialty of practice is what? Or was what?
It was more functional medicine, but optimizing
Okay.
health and performance. At the time when I had a full practice in Massachusetts, was still, I was more of the outlier. They were just giving nutritional care and IV therapies. Now what is considered longevity at that point was functional medicine. So I think we've reached the point where we have this wave of people who are practicing medicine in a different way. Most of the time now, my work is consulting in the longevity space and doing research. There's 4 or 5 docs now that are formed a small consortium to do translational work in humans, not following randomly controlled trials, not doing work with rodents. So our goal is to actually will have a clinic out of the United States where we can do those ones synergistic sequence therapies to understand. I like to talk about this resiliency. We make our body more resilient as we get older, and not healthspan. I'm not necessarily concerned. If we know what we're doing, I'm not concerned about heart disease 4 years down the road. If we know how the body's working and the body can heal itself and it's doing the right things, we're going to be able to improve the health and function. So all these pathological processes won't exist. It'll be a game changer. The paradigm shifting of how we look at health. And it's not happening in the current world. We're stuck between this Western medical model, which has gotten, you've spoken about it, which has many issues. We'll just leave it at that. This new wave of longevity medicine, which is rebranded anti-aging or biohacking, whatever you want to call it, which is better in medicine. It's more proactive, it's more individualized, which is great. And then you have the tech world and the pharma world, which really is looking for a hammer, right? It's looking for a singular solution that can be economic, produced and sold, right? It's not interested in what's best for you, Shawn. It's not interested in what's best for me. It's interested in what we can take and put it out to the market. And hopefully if we give it to 1 million people, a couple 100,000 will benefit from it. There was just an example, it blew me away. There was a new drug that was approved a few months ago for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And it used to be alcohol disease, right? And we talk about that a lot. The headlines of this medication were new breakthrough, game changer for liver disease, financially beneficial, changing the aspects of how you treat disease, right? And then when you clicked on the post, which were mainly in the economic, it was the Wall Street Journal, and it was Forbes, that's where they were being released, so it's okay. Then the other was statistically significantly benefit. They left that statistically. They just said significantly beneficial. So you go to read the article, which you can't find, right? So I had to get access to the actual journal article. And when you actually read the article, it said 20% of the people improved by scoring. They didn't do full biopsies. They didn't do MRIs to full. They had particular liver score issues for fibrosis. The 20% improved, 35% improved with the medication. Of the 50% medication, there were multiple side effects, not severe, and something that you probably won't want to take. So if you start doing the numbers, so what that means is that 15% of the people, if you give it to affect 1 million people, 150,000 are going to get better. 1 in 7. At the cost, you're yes. What's the cost per year for this?
You mean financial dollar costs?
Yeah. With the other medication, right?
Oh man, gosh, I don't know.
Yeah, it was like $20,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
$20,000 a year. You statistically get a little bit better for liver disease. It's not changing, it's not dramatically. It's like they got a little bit better. They didn't get worse. And for that, we're going to spend, if it's 20,000 times 7. So for one person to get a little bit better, the cost would be $150,000. So it is a rigged game. It's a racket. If you look at racketeering, and it really needs to change. I don't always come out that strong, but it's ridiculous. And even in the longevity space, it's like how do we train AI to find the next molecule? But one is how you work together here to figure out what we need to do. And people debate and argue, but ultimately it's like, how do we track people's health? How do we understand what's good for them? And I don't see that happening even now. I'm fortunate where I don't have a full practice, so I can just tie people together. But you have a really brand longevity doctors group, and they're busy. They're busy treating pathology. So even if they're doing things in a more sophisticated way and in a foundational way, but to have the bandwidth, be able to tie pieces together and to say, okay, Shawn, you have this insight. I have this insight. There's another doctor I'm working with who has some different insights. And how do we tie these together to actually sometimes think of a symphony, right? We create this symphonic therapy, and we can create this translational effect for humans. And if we can bring that and then train what's coming, AI in all sorts of ways, it will be able to put these things and start asking the questions. Because we don't train it properly. There was a company that just got $1 billion. It's called Sierra Technologies. $1 billion. Again, the headline was to improve the experience of disease. And it's all about finding the next molecule. So that's still where the tech world is going. It's still where the investments are going, is to the same old models. And instead of completely differently, how can we shift this paradigm? So that's my focus now.
I think it's to flesh out what that model really is. I can't remember when the term disease management came into sort of common parlance in medical, but I remember there's a shift where we were going to talk about disease management and the concept of curing disease, and it just doesn't exist anymore in any real way. And so you see all these blockbuster drugs. They're all basically really lifestyle drugs. And that's really what they are. They don't really go to cure anything, which would be cool, I think. I think the resource we don't put into that is quite amazing. But when you mention not healthspan, which some people are Understand, I think, a little more lifespan, obviously. Most of the 100-year-old people I met as an orthopedic surgeon were these demented old ladies in a urine-soaked diaper with a broken hip. And I was like, that doesn't sound good to me. I'm not interested in 100 if that's what 100 is. So we understand health span. Can you expound upon what you mean by resiliency a little bit more? I'm just trying to, I have an perception of what I think it might be, but if maybe
so I think the most simple way to think about it is, go back to, if you were injured when you were 23, right? Or if you were injured when you're 15, how quick does it take to recover, right? If you get sick, someone got a virus, how quick does it take to repair and recover? There's even a nuance of that where there's a little bit of anti-fragility of hormetics. Every time you're exposed to some type of particular, we'll call threat, your body gets a little bit stronger. I got a virus, we're demonstrably probably biochemically healthy, but we're not the same. In fact, we were around the same age as we were fun. We don't quite repair. I pulled a calf muscle and I've had this problem for a number of years, and a couple of times, and typically it took a month. This time it took 3 months to recover. Now, maybe it's just gotten a little worse, but it definitely didn't seem I recover as quick as I would have. Certainly better than someone else might have. When my father had a pneumonia after a virus, it took him, he's in his 80s, it took him 6 months to recover to what a 20-year-old would be better the next week. So that's what we're talking about, resilience. And you can overlay that with what is age reversal, and that's another piece to it. But the key is, can we do things? Can we be strong and recover to do things that I want to do?
You mentioned, and one of the, I don't know if it's a frustration or just one of the things I disagree with is how we do measure health these days, because a lot of times it's a collection of serum values. I'm like, man, that stuff changes like every 20 minutes. How do we make these long-term decisions based on this? How should we be measuring health? And some of the problems I see with measure, like I could look at what can I demonstrate? I had another physician send me his list of functional tests, which I think are a good way. It takes a while. It's expensive. Not everybody's going to want to do it. How do we shift away from just drawing a lot? Because the reason we take blood is because it's easy to get. It's not that it's the best information we can have. It's just so easy. We've been doing it for around what we've been able to do for years. Right? Yeah. So how do we get better at measuring maybe how healthy we are?
That's a good question. I think it's multifold. I think we could do so much better with even the bloods that we do. There are abilities to look at patterns in bloods. It's important. So the way I look at it ultimately is, if we don't look, we can't function. Getting back to resiliency, what is our function? How can we move through this world? How do we sleep? How do we get the blood circulatory to produce energy? And how does that show in cardiovascular? How does that show in endurance? How does that show in reaction time? So those are the signs of health. Because ultimately, if we're doing something to our body and it's doing it correctly, we should be able to show that these markers of health or resiliency are improved. There are certain things that don't improve with age, right? Like reaction time doesn't normally improve as we get older. Vision, auditory hearing, right? We could go through a list, and I have a long list as well, like heart rate recovery, or even max heart rate. When you do your rowing, how high can you get your heart when you're doing it?
I haven't tested it in a year. The last time I saw it, I was running, and I think I hit into the 190s, about 195. And I was probably at that time, because I'm 57 now, I was probably 54-ish. So I don't know. I haven't really worn a heart rate monitor in a while. I guess I'm too lazy to bother with it. But probably higher than I would have expected, given the 220 minus an age. So I was hitting up into the 190s, which I was actually pleased with.
That's for 50-something was great. So I think I maxed out like 175 or so for 64. So it's like, that's still pretty dang good. My wife is 60, is a cyclist. I'm about to climb through maxes like 99.99%, like in the upper 50s for a woman, is in the 170s as well. So that's a simple marker. It's not a handle marker. It's the same as VO2 max, but it's a sign that mitochondrial oxygen tissue, plurial muscle, mitochondria, myoglobin, hemoglobin, they're all functioning at a good response. You can throw onto that heart rate recovery, right? So when you hit 195, it's a bit of a training, but it's also an autonomic nervous system response. So each of these factors, when you start to build out, and look at ability on a phenotypic level. Back again, I looked at it as a triangle because we can look at how the body responds. Then you can look at organ function. And then you can look at markers. And going back to what I said earlier, they're familiar with epigenetic clocks, and there's a few companies that are looking at methylation patterns or proteomic noise patterns and trying to learn through machine learning and AGI what these patterns relate to and how they relate to organ function. The researchers don't care as much about the end. They want to know what the patterns are. As a clinician, someone really wanting to help, or as an engineer, I want to know what the results are. It doesn't do any good. We're building this bridge that can't hold up under weight, even if the molecules are quite right. So the understanding function is really important to me, and looking at that in a whole variety of ways. It's something I'm working on now, actually, this inner clinic there's things that I would like to know scientifically to continue to improve. And there's things that the client or customer or patient, whatever, right? What do people want to do? And if they want to be more energetic, they want to sleep, they want to be able to think quickly, react quickly, they want to do the things they like to do. And that's going to be different for each person. So that's going to guide them on how far or what effort they want to proceed. And then there's the biochemical bits, which can guide us into, because we can be misled, per se. You can be very fit. And I'll go back to a story where about 15 years ago, I built out this at-home assessment company. It was just looking at different biological markers, testosterone, hormone markers, amino acids, physiological markers such as omega-3. We're looking at vitamin D and so forth and so on. And we started testing a bunch of athletes, and this is high altitude, more endurance to sprinters. And we found that a lot of these people were very physically fit, but very physiologically unfit. They were getting by on being younger. They were getting by on just, they still had this core resilience. But when we looked underneath the hood, there were issues. And the other analogy I use is, right, you want to be more like a Tesla, built fast and powerful with very little exhaust, as opposed to a 4x4 with a 600 horsepower engine spewing out exhaust. And I'll use my wife as an example. Her VO2 max was 57, like crazy for under a 25-year-old woman. We did mitochondrial testing on her, and her density, like, it was off the charts. But her reactive oxygen species was not good, because even though she was training properly, she was spitting off ROS. What we learned was, and it's better now, she was accumulating iron. She had gone into menopause 3 to 4 years ago. We looked at her serum chemistry, looked at her saturation rate. Iron was at 50%. So we had to actually dump iron, get copper, A, C, magnesium. And in that replacement, she's having her best year ever. She feels better. And the mitochondrial reactive oxygen species has improved. We have some other tests coming in that I'm looking forward to refine that. There's a way you can do through blood test, point of contact to look at ROS. It's a company out of Italy. It's called FRAS5. There's a few others that will be able to actually measure this, which is cool. But my point is, like, sometimes you really need them all, because just because we're fit and healthy doesn't mean that we're not missing something. And certainly if molecularly we look good, but we're not fit and healthy, then clearly we're missing something as well. We're looking at the wrong chemicals or the wrong markers. We're interpreting it in an inappropriate way.
Yeah, I look forward to when we actually have clinical human results that I can say that actually worked, because I see a lot of these sort of markers and blood tests, and people say project, we think this means this. And I'm saying we're the 120-year-old fit, robust humans. Yeah. They don't exist yet. So once we start seeing that, I'll be a little more optimistic regarding that. But I do see people that are like, I just saw a little video of a woman who was 80 jumping rope which I think is pretty remarkable. You don't see most 80-year-olds able to jump rope, certainly not for a minute. And she was doing that quite nicely. And I think to me, that's a display of function that clearly you can't hide that with a blood test, or you can't test that in a blood test. It's actually functionally meaningful, because I know, like, for instance, most old ladies can't jump, and many of them fall and they can't catch themselves. As you mentioned, reaction time. Like you said, you can't go back to being what you had in your 20s, but you certainly, as you mentioned, you can improve. Obviously, there's damage that occurs, there's disease that occurs, and you can reverse that in many ways. So you can act like a relatively younger person in comparison to your peer group, which I think is, my peer group at 57 is a low bar. If I'm the average 57-year-old, honestly. So it's, what do you got to do to change that? And so obviously you're still exploring different metrics and stuff like that. But what do you consistently see as helps? Because people want actionable things they can do. And obviously you can test things, but you have to see some patterns. And I would assume some of the big, get good sleep, don't eat, don't poison yourself with your food, strength train, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, there's clearly, how many thousands of hours of podcasts and articles, right? I think you and I could probably sit down and in 6 sentences tell people what they need to do. And you just sleep, get enough protein, don't eat crap, fucking move, lift hard. I mean, I think Mark Sasson of his original Primal Fitness did a pretty good job at picking out the key ones. And I consult for a company, and it's like, and I see people like they're doing everything right except for one thing. And what the one thing they're doing is awful. They may not sleep. They're sitting 4 hours a night. They're doing all this other stuff that's this or week late. So I think people need to, sometimes it's what we're doing that's harmful is more important than what we're trying to do. Human nature, though, is just do more of this. And that's another thing that gets lost. Like, I consult for another company who works with people with rapamycin. They use rapamycin and that's another discussion. But so you might have someone 40 who wants to take rapamycin based on theoretically it's going to be good for them. And I think there's a place for it as you get older. But if they're taking rapamycin and they're taking testosterone, it's like, you can't do both, right? You can't be anabolic, then you can't be nutrient preserving at the same time. You have to go back and forth. So people will take multiple things and they won't track anything. So I think I'd probably throw onto that list, don't do too many things and figure out what you want to measure, right? How do you know you're headed in the right direction? And whether, hey, I want to dump the loss on this. What is it you want to achieve? And if you're going that direction, then that's great. But if you're going the wrong way, make a change. But if we do too many things, you have no idea what's working. But as you said, that takes some effort, and it takes some time, and it takes some guidance. Because I think part of the problem is this one pager, we really honed on this as like a 10 commandments of health. We have so much noise out there, right? Oh, carnivore, I'm vegan, I'm paleo, I'm okay. We're just talking diet, right? And none of these are going to get us very far past that 100-year-old 1 in 100,000 men or 50,000 make it past 100. So they don't think we can get there healthier and we can get there more functional. But at some point, there's changes in our body that are going to happen. And hopefully we'll have that figured out in this 5 to 10 years in a meaningful way. So I think that's the real hope is, yes, we all leave this planet at some point. We want to do the things we want to love to do, but I could use some of the 34 years of doing things I wouldn't want.
Yeah, obviously it depends on the quality of those years. But like for I've got a number of goals when I turn 60, and that's arbitrary, but I know what I need to do to get there. And in order to do those things, I got to do a lot of I got to sleep, I got to train, I got to not be fat. It just drives me in a healthy direction, right. I think. And so that's why these arbitrary goals are out there. And I know when I look at, when you say, when is a human in its peak health, you think about some 20-something-year-old athlete that's doing all these phenomenal things that they can do. And I think the closer you can remain to that, just by definition, you're less likely to be dead. You're
less likely to be dead, right? Less likely to knock you off, right? That's for sure. Yeah, and be 20 and still have a weakness. I mean, my son was an incredible athlete. just his connective tissue couldn't hold up to his strength. He was 13 and doing or 425 pounds. His vertical jump was 36. He could throw the ball 98 miles an hour. Baseball player. So that petition, and I've apologized. If I knew what I knew now, I would not encourage them to get a little bit better. We would have more focused on, in the same way, repair, recovery, take time. You let your body come back, being 5 or 10% better. Now, maybe you won't be at the top of the list now, but you'd be there, a few more years, perhaps. Then it might have found it anyway, but that would have been my wisdom for a younger me.
Yeah, and I think about if I could go back and tell my younger self, I would probably ignore it anyway. It's just, that's whatever you do, whatever, old man. You know what you're talking about.
So where's the peak of the earth? I would like to ask that before I forget. Where's the peak power? Peak time?
I've hit like a 103 split. I don't know what you're talking about. That's something like 500
meters.
I don't know, 1400 watts or something like that is what I've been able to do. I've done a 500 and 114, which was I did that when I was 50, and I literally I could beat a lot of Olympic rowers over the 500. Now they focus on the 2000, so it's a little bit different that they train for. But I was just big and strong. My time was Brian Shaw, who was the world's strongest man, pulled a 114 500. So I was pulling the same time as him and considerably smaller. I'm a big guy, but I'm not 6'8", 400.
Power. I think Ethan pulled 150 and he's only 5'11", 180.
Yeah,
just quick. Yeah, so there's different.
Yeah. Was that on a concept too?
Yeah,
was that
I think I can too.
Like I said, there's a certain level required of strength to do that. So that's a thing. I still probably can pull 150. In fact, I'm over the next, I don't know, month. I finally got a time where I'm not traveling. I'm going to focus on and try to break at least the American record, maybe the world record on that for the age class, which will be sub 115, I would say. I wanted to ask you.
We could talk separate. Do you have any particular pre-loading or mitochondrial support?
I don't know.
No,
okay. I don't think so. Maybe indirectly. I eat well, and
I give you some ideas. We can talk off. I'll send you. There's something we're working on that for ATP production that to be pretty cool. Yeah, right.
Okay. What do you think? You mentioned not a lot of 100 years old around. Or I see people like Dave Asprey saying he's going to live to 100 because he takes 300 supplements a day, and I laugh about that. I think I'm pretty skeptical. Where do you think we're going to see in the next 20 years, 10 years, 20 years? Are we going to see people walk around at 120 that are not, because even when I look at the masters level Olympic, like the masters track guys, which I think I can take some inspiration from those guys. But even whenever I see the 100-year-old out there running, we're all, yay, look at this 100-year-old running, but he's still really slow and he looks arthritic, and I very rarely seen somebody who looks fluid and smooth at that age. Not knocking these people, they're dead by then. So, but are we going to see people that act like 50-year-olds at 100 at some point?
I say the potential is there for that to happen. Yes, that's my. There's the ability is there, especially with becoming computer capacity, if trained in the appropriate way to understand biology, with the ability to use biologics, all these different modalities that they're going to be able to reprogram. Because how much there's nuances, right? So there's energy production. There's functionality. The functionality could be lost due to time, right? If in working, you're 20, you haven't been sitting in a chair for your playing out and about, right? So if you're standing, I'm sitting, right? So now we've had years of pattern. So is that an age thing, or is it a time thing? I think a lot of it is a time thing. So it will require effort to, in some ways, retrain the body to move in a more efficient way. That's going to take effort. There's also an elasticity. There's tissue elasticity that's lost as we get older. There's correlates that are working on that particular problem. There's the ability to generate energy. That one, I believe, is going to be an easier fix, like mitochondrial aspect. I think we'll figure out how there's already things we can do now if we focus on mitochondrial efficiency, reactive oxygen species, replacing autophagy. We have the ingredients. I don't think anyone's quite figured out how to put it together yet, but I'm confident that piece will be. So the ability to produce energy to achieve these will definitely be around. And then there's the injury part, right? We all have our life injuries. So can we repair those so they don't limit us? So I have a knee injury. It's okay. There's nothing bad, but it was a hockey injury when I was, 15. And then it was a reverse med ball throw. Right. Internally, it twisted my knee and I fractured the back of my patella. So it gets irritated if I really run on it. And I'll say, okay, something's starting to wear on it. If I want to get back to sprinting, I need to fix that. I'd love to get back to doing 50. I don't live long stuff, but I really enjoy running 50, 60 meters and just getting up to a flow. I'm not doing that now. If I don't fix that in the next few years, I suspect at some point I will lose that ability to do that because it will be too long. But I make up for it by doing sprints on a carol bike. So I do 5 sprints in 20 seconds. So I do sprint hard efforts. I measure power. Because that's if you don't measure. So if I can keep my power going, then at least I know energy production, there are lots of things are going the right direction. So I love that you do this. It's the sport metrics gives you a focus. It's for my wife too. She doesn't race. She wouldn't have enough of motivation. She would do it, but it just keeps her going. It's that yardstick that makes you continue to keep building with clearly effort, but not overdo it. So getting back to that, yes, I think so. I think so.
Yeah, you talk about, obviously we've got the engine, the cardiorespiratory side of things, and the energy production for the mitochondrial side, but then you have the chassis. So you compare it to a model, to a vehicle. If you got broken wheels, I don't care how good of an engine you have, you're not going anywhere. And that's the hard thing I think it's hard to try, because I could see where you might supplement your way or nutrition your way into better energetics. But you need the training component, in my view. I just don't think there's any way around it, particularly when it comes to tissue remodeling. And you talked about tissue elasticity. There's also tendon stiffness, which plays a big role in how bouncy we are. And I've been looking quite intently into that. And so I do a lot of plyometric training.
I haven't been doing that as much. So I need to get back to that.
Yeah. Because you hurt.
Well, I'm fearful that I'm going to, this really not me, but it took me so long to recover from that last tendon once, and it just happened out of the blue.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think it's high volume, lower intensity stuff to drive the tissue remodeling that's required so that you can eventually progress.
Even getting someone like a little rebound is a good thing. You're right.
Yeah, as a start, although I think the rebounders don't have enough. There's not enough impact to drive the bony and tendon change that you're going to get, but it gets the blood moving and it feels good. I like some fundamentals.
Yeah, I was speaking with
a
trainer who works with a lot of Olympic sprinters, and we're talking physiology and deuterium depletion. He's very big into deuterium depletion, or measuring deuterium levels as a sign of if people are not eating too many carbohydrates, if they're sleeping well. It's actually quite useful for them. And he sees a direct correlation between the high level athletes and their levels and the ones who aren't achieving quite as much. So it's quite interesting. He was talking about doing loaded jumps, where he works with, if you're going to do jumps, do them with weight. And it's a way to increase the power, but not necessarily produce much strain. You're not going to jump as high on the body. So, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's the same thing like sprinting, doing loaded sprints, because it slows you down enough so you don't have enough speed to tear things. Like I get behind a sled and push a thing pretty hard, and even as hard as I can push, I just can't move fast enough to hurt myself. And if I go out there, and how many times you go out there and run a sprint and you just get a little too much adrenaline and you're like, I just want to push that time a little faster. And then you pull a hamstring and just, okay, now I can't do anything for 6 weeks.
Or running up hills.
Yeah, hills are good. Hills are good too. There's all kinds of way to do that. And I've got, like I said, all those things hopefully in place because I've got some, like I said, outside of dunking, I want to run a sub 1300, that's pretty good. It's world records like 11.7 at my age, but at 60. But I'm also 260 damn pounds. So I got to lose weight. I got to get down to about 240 before I can realistically, I think, have a chance at anything like that. But yeah, that's like I said, it's good. It keeps me honest and keeps me after it. So obviously, anybody's in the longevity or the functional fitness or the optimization space, your clientele tends to be high achieving, probably wealthier people that do that. But how do we to the masses? Because a lot of people, this is unattainable to. Is there ways, if I imagine going to the physician's office, how many people are you going to go out there and do a max heart rate test and some 7-year-old obese,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Pre-diabetic can't do these things? It's like, how do we assess, how do we bring more meaningful evaluations? Because right now, like I said, it's easy. We'll just draw some blood. We'll check your CBC, your basic chemistry panel, your lipids, and go from there. And maybe your thyroid and a few other tests. But that seems to be it and I think we're leaving so much behind. Yeah, I guess you could do like dobutamine stress cycle, but that costs so much money. I'm just wondering, how do you bring a more meaningful evaluation of health to the masses? Is that possible?
I do think so. I think we're leaving, as I said earlier, so much on the table with basic chemistry for a couple $100. Like, even, I'm sure you've talked about, like, most docs don't even order an insulin, right? They don't look at GGT or ALT, AST ratios, or we're good with the uric acid of 7, right? So, when I look at someone, like, first off, are they metabolically healthy? And I'll tell you, a metabolically healthy person, their uric acid is 3, their GGT is 12, their AST and ALT are under 20, their insulin is 4, their RDW is 12, iron saturation is like around 25%, their hemoglobin, depending on how they're training, isn't 17 for a man, is sitting around 15. So their serum iron is 100, total creatine sits around 1. So you need to optimize these metrics. And when you start to even rate it, right, and we can get more sophisticated looking at patterns, there's things that are always missed. So that's one thing, is making sure that you're not overlooking these very simple, easy markers that say, hey, you're metabolically unhealthy. And I start with that because that is our grand epidemic that we face in today's world, is metabolic poor health. Visceral fat, like Shawn, have you ever seen Shawn Amara? Yeah, I mean, his whole practice, his whole thing is visceral fat. And there was just a study that came out and wrote it, they pulled out the visceral fat, and guess what? A whole bunch of stuff got better. They actually surgically removed it. So Shawn, to me, is the road of arms. Today's world, and do you remember Bird of Arms? And they were exposed. So Bird of Arms was the physician in the 60s that wrote, it was called the unsuspected illness, hypothyroidism. And he was so good as a family practitioner. He used a lot. If you would look at the classic markers of thyroid, dry hair, eyebrows, loss of hair on your shins, facial thickness of skin, constipation, even infertility. So it was a very easy. And then you have them measure their body temperature. And then he said, oh, okay, you're clinically acting hypothyroid. Now, were they all truly hypothyroid? Probably not. They gave them our thyroid, and a large percentage got better. That wasn't the true root cause fix, but it made a difference by looking at these markers. We can do the same thing with chemistry. There's a cool test for metabolic health, is you can look at hypoxia recovery. So, again, headspace. Let's be expensive, but when you can actually get these oxygen tubes, I actually have an oxygen training system where it's hypoxia. So I have a system where I can get 8-9% oxygen, which I'll read. I need to go through 90%. But you get these little silos that will simulate low oxygen. And you breathe those just sitting down to 85 or 80%, which you set. And then you stop and you wait till you recover. A very healthy person, metabolically, it'll be a ratio of 4 to 5 times the one. If you're very fit, it could take you 3 minutes to get to 80%, but you're to recover in 30. A very unhealthy person, it's going to get to 80%. It's not uncomfortable, but you're going to want to stop within a minute. And they could even take 2 minutes to recover. So to me, that's like the most simple thing we could do to test for people's cardiometabolic fitness. It can be done for everyone. Why are we doing a VO2 max? Why are we risking someone who we know is unfit? Clearly you know it, but now you have a metric. And if we view a number as something to help people improve, you can teach them how to breathe. You can get them moving. You can make changes in their lifestyle so they can bring their physical fat down.
Yeah, that's the hardest part of the equation, because you can measure everything you want, but how do you change the behavior? And I think that's a secret sauce there. And it's just, and I found, because my company is basically, as a surgeon, as an orthopedic surgeon, of course, I'm too damn busy to give a long lecture. So I'm handing people flyers and go watch this video type of stuff, which is really, it's not very impactful, even if you want to. But now I've got teams of people that support these people, because I think some of them need so much hand-holding and so much education, so much motivation and accountability, that I think that has to be part of the equation.
For most people. Yeah.
Now, there's some people that are like, I'm internally motivated, man. I'd chew through bricks if I thought it was going to give me whatever that thing, and I'm just willing to do that. But the majority of people are not. And so the question is do I even care? If you're not willing to take care of yourself, what is my role here? But I don't know. It's just, we're in a funny place, because we got so many people that are sick. The whole society is sick relatively, and it's harming the whole society. So I think we have to find a societal solution, not just a solution for the 1%ers.
It's true. But if we work with the 1%ers, we'd be good. If we don't stretch ourselves, but we don't begin to test things, we will not find out one or two or three easier solutions. So we can take that information, or like NASA going to the other way, how many everyday discoveries we now use based on what they did to get the rocket ship out to the moon. We need the educators. I think we need the envelope pushers, and ultimately we need coaches, right? It's the health coach. But I think the thing that my wife's a health coach, and she'll say to me, her biggest thing is finding someone's why, right? Your why, my why, we're self-motivated, we want to stay fit. Your performance health is, you're also an educator, so you want to walk the walk. I think that's part of it. But what is it the why for each person? And it's not, I wrote it down necessarily to tell them what their why is. And I think most doctors want to tell them what their why is, and that doesn't work. But what's going to motivate someone to make a change? And you can even go further. Maybe their life is just such a shambles, emotionally, stressfully, psychologically, that they don't care. So I'm just going to go on and do it. It's just not going to bother with it, that's a whole nother piece to it. How do you go there?
Yeah, you get these people that are so far gone. And I was doing amputations on people, and they look, your legs are coming off and you need to change it. No, we're not going to do that. We're so addicted to this stuff. So I think we have to start with the kids. We got to get these kids before they get so far to where they're at the point where they can't be helped anymore. In many ways, it helps psychologically. I guess if you were to kidnap everybody and lock them in a facility and dictate everything they did, you could probably force some people. I think there's some people that would actually want that because they don't have their own ability to do it. But I think we got to get these kids.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think sometimes, as well as it's in anything we do, it's the change. It's very hard to change. So if you can get people to feel something, oh my gosh, we even realize, I think a lot of people don't even realize that it's under their control. And I think part of Western medicine is we don't want you to know that this is under your control. We don't educate you to do that, because the doctors don't really know it either. Yeah, I had trouble with my mother. She had cognitive issues and just wouldn't follow through. And part her unwillingness, but part of she was just stuck with her physician. He just roll out a new medicine, I take it away, give her another one, and it's just, yeah, I am in the same town, or it's just nothing I can do. After 10 years, it's just, even though she knew,
yeah, there's this learned helplessness or this disempowerment many people have, because once you get into the healthcare system, we're often told we have this disease or a condition. You don't really know why. We don't have a good reason why. You ask somebody why, I don't know, bad luck, genetics, who knows? That's usually the response to most diseases are idiopathic, it's chronic disease. So it's like we can't figure it out. And then the answer is you're now dependent upon someone else to provide you medications. And it really is disempowering and depressing when you think about it. There's so much you can do to improve your health condition outside of what sort of the allopathic medical system has to offer you. And I get it as a physician. I wasn't trained on this stuff. Two, I didn't have any resources, even if I wanted to. I think about all the money, like for me to do an orthopedic surgical procedure, I have literally millions of dollars of resources in hospital OR rooms and support staff and imaging studies and labs and physical therapy and just the physical structure of the buildings. And yet, if I wanted to do a lifestyle intervention, I got almost no money. There's zero money for that. So it's like, where are the alignment? Where are the incentives aligned at? And in my way, it's almost a little bit perverse in my way where the incentives
clearly
are.
There's no money in it, right?
Healthcare.
It's unfortunate. It's not what it is. And
I do think we've reached a point where a lot of people have become frustrated. And we're even seeing it because we got these political elections, and at least some of the candidates are now talking about why is everybody so damn sick? Why do we have everybody say, why are there so many autoimmune diseases? Why is everybody obese? Why is there so much diabetes? And maybe we can at least start to have that discussion. And because anything you want to achieve as a company, you can't achieve it when half your population is overweight, obese, diabetic, mentally ill. It's one of those things we got to change the narrative.
Right. And unfortunately, that's a problem for our country here. And you don't see that as much in other locations. And some, but there are a number of others, and it's going to be a significant advantage. Like you said, I'm concerned with this next generation of the very thing that's gone on. They've gone through 2 or 3 generations of core food, injections, and all sorts of things, and electromagnetic frequencies. It's concerning.
What do you think Rich, we've got just 5 minutes here, but when you evaluate all these various peoples with these different metrics, what do you think are the most deleterious things people do that when you fix, you get the biggest bang for your buck? Is it not sleeping? Is it just eating garbage? What do you think the things are that really are the big levers?
Eating garbage, I think, would be first and foremost. If we are toxic, your body is quite resilient. I think so. Even within the realm of carnivore versus vegetarian, people can survive a long time if they're not eating garbage. So I would put that as a first and foremost. We have a very resilient body with many systems. And while there could be deficiencies in certain things you do, while you could harm yourself by overtraining, you start throwing toxins into the mix. Then it's just, you don't recover from that. And those toxins could be any number of things, from emotions to chemicals. To me, iron is very much tuned into making sure that iron regulation is optimized, and that's a problem. So I would put that number one for sure. It's a harder one to do, but I think if you can do that and just clean house, it makes everything else a lot easier. Yeah, there's educator. What's easier to do at protein, and it's easier to do sleep if you can sleep, right? That some people, there you go. Yeah. So why aren't people sleeping? So it's not, if you're intentionally not paying attention to it, sure, get some sleep. Darken your room. Don't watch violent movies at night or do things that target you can play under late night before reality.
Rick, I can't see you, and unfortunately, we're just right out of time. Appreciate our time together. We'll get this out soon. So anyway, if you'll leave your browser open to make sure it uploads. Anyway, I do have to go. I apologize. Thank you for being here.